going to be your host today as we discuss wall panel diagrams. We're going to use the model that's on my screen to show you how you can take this model and create individual wall panel diagrams on individual sheets and combining multiple copies of the wall panels onto one sheet as well. We'll also look at all the various settings that you can use for wall panel diagrams. After I'm done my formal presentation on wall panel diagrams, I'm going to open up the chat panel where you can type in questions that you might have about wall panel diagrams, and I can answer them live during the broadcast. So throughout the broadcast, type in your questions, and once I'm finished, I'll be able to address your questions. Following the entire presentation, I'm going to email you a booklet about wall panel diagrams so you can also read about them. So let's get started in speaking about wall panel diagrams. As you can see on my screen, I have a model drawn. Each one of these individual walls, so wherever that's breaking at an intersection, will be seen as our wall panel diagram tool as an individual wall. You also have the ability in the software to break the wall into individual panels as well. So as an example, this wall that I have on the left-hand side, I'm going to left-click to select it. It's 25 feet long, so very long for an individual wall panel diagram. If I right-click after left-clicking to select that wall, it will reveal options that I have for that wall. You'll notice two options that we can use. One is the break option. I can break that wall at any point, and I could break it into two different pieces. Or I can use auto break. We'll automatically break it into set distances for me. So I'm going to show you both tools, and I'll show them on two different walls. So for this long wall, I'm going to use the auto break tool. The auto break tool will ask me two questions in the dialog box. For the enter break distance, we have offset from opening break. So if I have an opening in the wall, it just wants to know if I'm creating a panel, and that panel on these preset distances happens to be right at an opening. How much further from the opening should I offset? So I'll type in a distance here that let's leave that at 6 inches away. And what is the minimum length of our panel? So what are the lengths that we want to break our panel into? So if I say that I want the panel diagram length to be, let's say, 8 feet, and then I'll click OK. Now you can see that the wall has been broken into 8-foot panel lengths. So it's going along throughout the wall, and it's trying to break it into 8-foot panels. What it notices at the very end is, oh, you've got about 2.5 inches, so it combines that into the very last panel for us. So you can take a long wall and automatically break it into panels, individual pieces, by using the auto break tool. Or you can also take a wall and break it at a specific point as well using the break tool. So if I come along to this wall that I've selected that's 10 feet long, I can left click to select anywhere on that wall where I want to break it. When it breaks it, you can see that it automatically dimensions to that point where I've broken it. So then I can go in and say, well, I want this dimension right here to be 5 feet. And see the little arrows on the side? It's wanting to know when I'm adjusting this 6-foot dimension down to 5 feet, am I making the adjustment from the top of the wall, the up arrow, or the bottom of the wall, the down arrow? So I'm going to say the top of the wall and click OK. And it'll bring that top portion down for the 5-foot dimension. Two ways to break it into panels. Now, to take these walls and break them into individual wall panel framing diagrams, we go up to the Tools pull-down menu. And under the Tools pull-down menu, you'll see Wall Panels. Wall panels are only available in our Construction Suite software. All other versions of our software will not have the Wall Panels tool. So I'm going to choose Wall Panels. The Wall Panel dialog box will appear. And in here, it'll break all of the walls into individual panels for me. So we can see a very slight wall where I had it at the end there, and I did my auto break. And we'll change that and correct that by adjusting that one panel. So we can go out through the model, going through the list on the left-hand side. As we highlight a panel number, it'll show us the panel elevation in the upper right, and in the lower right, it'll give us a little legend of our plan and highlight the one wall that we want to use in red. So this panel number 1 is shown in elevation, and we can see where panel number 1 is on our diagram as well. So as you go through and see all the individual walls, you can see their individual wall panels as well. The information that's available on the wall panel diagram itself can be updated and changed. I'm just going to go through these walls. And when we look at these walls, as an example, you can see that we see an elevation of the wall, and underneath it, there's a plan view. Underneath that as well, we can also produce a material list to go along with this wall. All of the dimensions are on top and around the sides of the panel diagram as well. And you have the ability to customize what dimensions you want to see. If you even want to see a plan view or an elevation of the wall or the material list underneath as well. To customize how you want your wall panels diagrams to appear, you come up to the Options dialog box. Under the Options dialog box, you'll see Panel Configurations, and I'll choose that option. In the Panel Configuration dialog box, it'll outline a number of different options that you have to customize your wall panel diagrams. On the left-hand side, it has the different groups of information. So the first portion of information that I want to change are the panel tags themselves. Right now, we have them starting at the number 0. But if you wanted them to start at the number 1, then you could change that to a number 1 or whatever number that you wanted. If you wanted them to be 10 and go up from there, it doesn't matter. Do you want to put a prefix and start in front of that start number? So if you wanted to type in WP for wall panel, WP1, WP2, you could do that. If you also wanted to add in the location information as the prefix, you could do that as well. So I want the location name. So it would be ground floor WP1. And then if I had a second floor, WP2. We could also include a suffix. So if that's where I wanted the WP, I could put it there. Or if I wanted it to be a different name altogether, A or B, whatever suffix I wanted to put after the panel number, I can change that and it would automatically apply those. If I wanted the location data to be after the panel, so if it was WP1 ground floor, we could do that as well. Default panel side per view is the left. So when we're looking at a wall, the panel side that it's automatically going to look on is the left-hand side of the wall. How do we determine the left-hand versus the right-hand side of a wall? Well, when we're looking at a wall, and it's in plan view and we select it. So for example, the red wall that is highlighted here. When you left click to select it out on your model, you'll notice that there's always a green dot on one end of the wall. And on the other end of the wall, you'll notice that there's a red dot. You pretend that you're standing on the green dot, looking towards the red dot, and then you'll have your left and your right. So when you're looking, the default panel view side is always going to be on the left, but you can change that and make that the right-hand side as well. So you've got different options on when it's tagging the wall panel. Which side of the wall do you want the tag to actually be on? How do you want the tag itself to be called out? Are there special letters or numbers that you want to start with? This is where you can input that information. Now, as far as inserting the panel diagram, when we go to insert this onto a drawing sheet to print out, the scale that we're going to use is 1:48 or 1/4 inch. If you wanted a default different size, you can change that right here and have it change the size. The worksheet scale, it can automatically create a title block around the panels when they go to insert. And the scale of that worksheet, we're going to say, is 1/4 inch as well. Plan view spacing. So the distance from my plan view underneath my elevational view, we're going to leave almost a foot. And I can change that to be anything. So if I wanted that to be 1'4", so there's a nice big gap between the elevation and the plan view, I can do that. Do we want to include a drawing border around each one separately? We can import one here or include one of the ones that are already part of our model space and have them used. If I'm going to insert multiple wall panel diagrams on one sheet, what's the maximum number of panels that I want to put across the sheet? And I've got it down here as 3. So you can increase that number. So if you're using a 24 by 36-inch piece of paper, what's the optimum number of panels that you want it to have across before it starts a new row? And I'm just going to put mine down as 3. The text and dimension styles. When I'm using dimensions, what style of text do I want to use and dimension do I want to use? They're all labeled down here. So my dimension style, I'm using our standard style. Our label text, the labels underneath, what panel number is this? It's also going to use a standard style. The tag text, so when it's tagging the floor plan, what size and style of text is it using? Again, it's standard. If I do want to change any of these, I can just click on the little button that appears, and that'll take me into our text styles dialog box, where I can choose any one of the styles that are there, or right-click to even create a new style as well. So I'll choose our standard style there. And from there, I can go to our schedule text, and again, that allows me to go right out, choose a new style as I want to. So each one of these can be updated and changed, and if I want to make my labels even bigger, I can choose my label style. Then I come down to my panel content. When I'm creating that wall panel diagram, what information do I want to include with the panel diagram? Do I want the elevation of the panel? Yes. Do I want a plan view of the wall? Then I would click yes. Do I want to display the wall tags? So on my floor plan, do I want the number 1 to appear underneath the 1 wall and the number 2 to appear under the 2 wall, so you can correlate the floor plan back to the wall panels so it's obvious which panel is attached to which wall in the plan? Do I want to include the very top plates? So my wall framing includes top plates and very top plates. You can include those or disclude them depending on how you're creating this on site. If you're going to be attaching the very top plates on site and not creating them in your factory or on the floor, then you might want to say, no, I don't want to include them as part of the wall panel diagram. We're going to be attaching those on site. But if you do want to see them with the secondary top plate, because you're going to be building these walls on site, you just want nice diagrams to illustrate each wall, then you could set that to no as well. Next we have dimensions. Lots of choices for dimensions. You could turn all of this to yes and have every little piece of lumber in this wall completely dimensioned. So we have running vertical dimensions, and that running vertical dimension is going to be included, yes. It's going to include the top plates, the bottom plate, so we see the little dimension at the bottom. We see the openings that it's also dimensioning to as well, and the structural opening. So I'm saying no to the physical opening, but yes to the structural opening. The running dimensions horizontally. I'm including that dimension, yes. I'm including the studs, the cripples, the opening members, so coming along with my jacks and my kings. My physical opening, no, but the structural opening, yes. And then I have dimension string 1. So you can see these dimensions along the top here. Dimension string 1 is going to include the studs, the cripples, and the structural opening. Dimension string 2 is just going to be the physical opening, so it's just going to the openings. Dimension string 3 is just going to be along the top. And then we also have one that is to the overall dimension as well. So we can include those. So either one, is dimension string 3 and the overall probably will match because the dimension string 3 is just going to your top plates. So I'm going to shut that down to show you that we could disclude that as well. The last option that we have are schedules. underneath the wall panel diagram and underneath that floor plan view that we have of the plan view of the actual wall panel showing the stud layout, we can also put a schedule underneath it. I'm saying, yes, I want a schedule. I want it to be below my floor plan view, or I can put it to the right, but I'll leave mine below. And do I want to include usage? Which means when it's labeling all of these members in this wall panel diagram, in the corresponding schedule below, it could say that this particular member is being used as a stud. This particular member is being used as a top plate. I find that very beneficial, so I put that to yes, and I'm including that as well. So these are all the information about how you can customize the wall panel diagrams. Include the floor plan, plan view, or the elevation view, the section underneath. Do you want dimension styles? Which dimension styles do you want to use? What dimensions do you want to include, and which ones do you want to leave off? And do you want to include a schedule? So lots of options so you can fully customize everything. Back up under the options, we can come to panel numbering. We've got the panel numbering starting at panel 1. We told it now that we want to start it at number 1. It remembered that from our settings. Do we want to sort as drawn? So the very first wall you drew would be panel number 1. The second wall you drew would be wall number 2. Or do we want to do a custom sort? The exterior walls, counterclockwise or clockwise, around the model itself, or as drawn. The interior load bearing, left to right, right to left, and non-load bearing as well. And the horizontal walls that are interior, top to bottom, bottom to right, or as drawn. So even as they're being numbered, you can sort them differently than as drawn. It could be horizontally versus vertically in our interior walls, and also with our exterior walls, clockwise versus counterclockwise. And then you choose sort the panels, and it would resort them. You can see my numbers now start with panel number 1, and they go through the list. So it's not starting at 0 anymore. It's starting at number 1 and going through the list. When we're looking at these options as well, you can also say apply the name changes to the selected panels. So if we had changed our configuration and put that WP in, we could select our group of panels, maybe just these ones here, come back up and say apply the name changes to these ones. So it becomes ground floor wall panel 4, ground floor wall panel 5. Or we can tell it to select all of the panels and do the exact same thing. Apply all of those names to them. And you can see the text size has grown as well because I told it I wanted the label size. So lots of options on how you're going to label them and go. You can also take the bill of materials that's going to be attached to each of these different wall panel diagrams, and you can send that out as a text file. So you could send that out to a CNC machine. So the bill of materials from the selected panel, so if I took wall panel number 3 as an example and told it that I wanted to send the bill of materials from the selected panel, it would go out. I'll put this right out on my desktop. I could put that into the CSV file, and that's the panel bill of materials. And that would go out, and you could send that off to your CNC machine if you wanted to. So lots and lots of options there, all available here. Again, under panel configuration, what do we want to change in our insertion settings, in our dimensions and text. If there's anything, remember you just pick on it, tell it you want something different, and then you can click OK and it will update. Do you want to include the schedule? Where do you want the schedule to be? All of these various options and insertion settings can all be updated and changed. And when you click OK and tell it that we're going to update the selected panels and apply the changes and name changes and everything to our panels, and it will update those for us if it needed to as well. Now I can take these panels and I can take just a couple of them like this, just these 3 of them, and tell it that I want to insert these panels. So when I highlight just a number of them and hit insert the panels, watch the bottom of my screen. See how it's created individual tabs, ground floor plan 2, 3, and 4. If I hit close here, we can see that on ground floor wall panel 2, it's created an individual drawing view page for me for that particular sheet. As part of my settings, I told it I didn't want a title block around it. So it's just created this view of the wall panel diagram with all the settings that I chose. So I'm going to zoom in nice and close so we can see those various settings. So with our dimension settings, you can see we have the overall dimension at the very top here. And then we have our dimension to our opening. And then we have dimensions line number 3 here to each individual stud. Coming up vertically, coming from the bottom plate to our row of blocks, coming up to the header and to the top plate. We can see all of those going through. It's labeled itself, ground floor wall panel number 2, and underneath that we see a plan view of our wall. If we scroll down here, we can see that there's also a corresponding material report, so that we know that anything that's labeled an A is a stud. That's a 2x6 SPF. There's 11 of them, and they measure 7 foot 8 5/8. B are jack studs. C is a header. D is blocking. And it has each of the pieces of blocking labeled differently because you can see the lengths over on the right-hand side are all different. Because they have a different length, they need a different label. Same with our plate material and our cripples. So they've all been labeled up here on our drawing screen for us. So everything correlates. When you select the panels back in our model view and highlight a few of them and tell them you want to insert the panels, it will always put them on their own individual sheets. If you want to combine panels onto one sheet, then you go to one of your working drawing sheets that you've created. You come up to the Tools pull-down menu, and under the Tools pull-down menu, you choose Wall Panels, which will take us back into that same Wall Panel dialog box. The wall panels that have already been inserted, you can see have a little symbol beside them. Do I want to regenerate them? They've already been inserted. Is there changes that I want to make and regenerate the panels to reflect the changes that might have occurred? Or I can select new wall panels that I want to create and tell it with these wall panels, I want to insert them. But look how I have another option when I'm here on Working Drawing Sheet. Do I want to insert these panels on the current worksheet or on new worksheets? If I choose on new worksheets, Wall Panel 5, 6, and 7 will all be on their own individual view tab. If I choose on the current worksheet, it will combine all 3 and put them wherever I click my cursor. So when I click my cursor, it's going to put that wall panel diagrams on my sheet for me. So you can see all 3 now on the sheet, on one sheet. So if you want multiple wall panel diagrams on one sheet, you're choosing on current worksheet. If you want them on individual sheets, it's on one new worksheet. That is available when you're here on worksheets. Back in your model view, if you went up to Tools and Wall Panels, there's only one option for Insert Panels because you're not on a current worksheet. It recognizes that, and it's going to put them all on individual sheets for you. Lots of options, lots of opportunity for these wall panels. I'm going to hit Close here. If we were to make any changes to our model, as an example, I'm going to take this wall where we had that really small little piece of wall panel there, and I'm going to make this into one long panel here and then the short panel. When I have that, it'll recognize that there's a change. When I go back up to Tools, Wall Panels, it'll say, hey, what about wall panel number 2 here? I need to regenerate these panels that have been inserted if I wanted to, or I can update and change all of them as I'm going through. So 10 and 11 now, it recognizes the different numbering there, and it has eliminated that extra panel for us. So changes to your model, you can come back up and tell it to insert that panel. It would want to regenerate that panel if we'd have inserted it already onto a working drawing sheet. It recognizes that that panel has never been inserted onto a working drawing sheet, so it doesn't need to be inserted. You'll notice that wall panel number 1, that was that tiny little piece at the side there, is gone from our list. So if I wanted to come back up to my options and my panel numbering, panel start number is 1, sort the panels, it can resort them, and then I can regenerate all of the panels, regenerate those, and those are all regenerated now at the correct numbering system. So once you've inserted a panel, you can regenerate those panels as well. You're not stuck with the original numbering system that you might have used if you eliminate a panel or make a change to your model. So let's recap everything that we learned about wall panel diagrams today. When you draw your floor plan, you have the ability to break walls into smaller pieces so that you can create the wall panel diagrams, the appropriate length for your worksheets. By selecting a piece of wall, you can right-click, and after right-clicking, you'll reveal 2 options. The break option, where you can break it any place along that wall and then edit the dimension to move it specifically where you want that wall panel length to be, or you can use the auto break option, which will automatically look at the length of the wall and break it into the length that you've chose as your optimum length for that panel. Looking at your model, once all of the walls are drawn, and if you've put any breaks into the longer walls, you can then go up to the Tools and Wall Panels option. Again, the Wall Panels option is only available to those people that use Envisioneer Construction Suite. In the Wall Panel dialog box in the upper right-hand corner for the panel configurations and panel numbering. The configurations covered the information about the wall panel tags themselves. What number do I want to start with? Do I want to have a prefix before the number and the location named as well? Or do I want to include that as a suffix and the location after the number tag as well? There's many different insertion settings about how you're going to import these individual panel diagrams onto working drawing sheets. Their scale, is there a border? How many do you want to cross when you choose so many that you're going to insert? What styles of text and dimension do you want to use? And what's included in the wall panel? Do we want an elevation view? Do we want a plan view? Do we want to include tags on our original floor plan? And do we want the very top plates? And dimensions, lots of dimensions can be included, and you can back those out as well. Also with the schedule, where do we want the schedule to be placed? Do we even want a schedule? Click OK here, and then it's a matter of inserting the individual panels. They'll all come in as individual sheets, or going right to one working drawing sheet, and again going to the Tools pull-down menu, choosing Wall Panels, but here out in Worksheet View, because it recognizes that we're on a title block sheet. It gives us the opportunity to insert many on one sheet, or the individual ones on individual sheets. I'm going to slip back now to Model View. One of the options that we had told it that we would like is to put the individual tags on the walls. You can see we don't see the tags right now. I'm going to draw your eye to the bottom of my screen to the View filter. If I go into the View filter, you'll see an option there for tags and marks. And I'm going to pick on that little plus sign beside tags and marks to show the individual opportunities for tags and marks. I'm going to tell it I want our wall panel tags to be turned on. So I'm going to unlock them and open the eye. When I do that and click OK, you'll see the corresponding tags going for each wall. Ground floor wall panel 1, ground floor wall panel 2. So each of them can be labeled as well. And our viewing side, we told it we wanted on the left. So they're all coming from the left-hand side of each of the walls as it was drawn. Again, wall panels, tools, wall panels for all of your various options, and insert them here on Model Space. And when you go back into your working drawings environment, if you want to insert multiple panel diagrams on one sheet, again, it's going to the Tools pull-down menu, and there you'll see wall panels as well. Lots of options, so you can customize the appearance of your wall panel diagrams. What I'd like to do now is open up our chat panel and answer any questions that you might have about wall panel diagrams. In the GoToMeeting console, that's probably on the right-hand side of your screen, you'll see a questions portion. There you can type in questions, and they'll be sent immediately to me so I can see them. I am the only one that can read your question, so please don't ever hesitate to ask a question. This is a great opportunity for you to learn more about a little piece of our software each week. So if you do have any questions about what I did to create the wall panel diagrams or the options available to customize the look and appearance of the wall panel diagrams, type in those questions now and I'll be able to answer them for you. While I'm waiting for your questions, I do want to remind you that I will be sending you out a little workbook so you can read about wall panel diagrams as well. I'm also taping today's class. So at the end of the presentation, I'll be loading that up to our archive. Please give it about a day to load up and change itself into our YouTube page so it can be uploaded there and everybody can view it. And then you'll be able to view our archive. If you've never been up to our archive before, I'm going to take you to our website, www.cadsoft.com. Go to our Client Center, and there you'll see our link for our webinars. This is where you registered for today's class. Each week you can see the listing of all of the different classes, and you can register for all of them ahead of time so you have each class, and it will send you the login information prior to the class. At the bottom of the page is where you see our webinar archive. And when you click on the archive, it's going to ask you for a login and password. In the email that I send you today with the booklet on wall panel diagrams will be included the login and password. That gives you the opportunity to see any of our past classes that you might have missed. So if you weren't around for columns, beams, and lumber, or presentations and renderings, you'll be able to view those past classes in the webinar archive. There doesn't seem to be any questions being asked today, so I hope that means that everybody feels very comfortable with wall panel diagrams and trying those out on your own system. Never hesitate to play with these various tools and the settings that are there. Start up a sample little drawing, just like the one I did today. Play with those different options that you find under Tools and Wall Panels. Go up to the options, make some changes, insert some panels to find the best configuration that's for you. Never hesitate to play with these options and see what they'll do, the best way to learn all the various options. So I guess without any questions today, I am going to end off the webinar. I want to thank everyone for joining me for today's class. Again, I will be sending you out the booklet and the login information for our archive. I look forward to speaking to you again next week. Thanks everyone for joining me. Have a great day. Bye-bye.